Hey, we're finally on the last chapter of Shields and Butzu, Generations of Praise, chapter 11. This chapter really isn't really about the history. This is today, present, and trends, and what they think about the future. Um, so this is more about their personal experience and observations. It's not really the facts. So they kind of warned that at the beginning of the chapter. Um, I took from Shields. He went around and did a observation of different worship services around the world, and so I kind of did a little bit on that. The space, it just varied between each culture. People can worship anywhere basically. Some people even worship under a tree. They don't even need a building. They just worship outside. For the time is much more casual outside of North America. And I realized that from just knowing that from observing YouTube videos of mission trips to Africa and such. So some services will last hours, and there's no rush to begin or end services at a set time. The order, there's just about anywhere that Bruce Shields went. There was the prayers, music, scripture, sermon, and Lord's Supper, and they were all in some sort of sequence. He did say that the places that he visited, though, they were planted by missionaries of the West from his time, so they probably brought the same sort of order with them. The initiation, baptism by immersion, is the dominant way of Christian initiation. The Lord's Supper was practiced everywhere. No matter the language, you can still understand what is happening. The breaking of the bread, which is Christ's body, and the wine that is poured is Christ's blood. Music is everywhere. It varied from culture to culture, but it still was like a very important part of the worship service in every culture. And then they talked about the trends for the future, and it almost was a little bit depressing for the Protestant churches. They talked about how it will become more contemporary and less Christian, specifically in the music area, right, and in the service in a whole. Right now, like compared to Catholic and Greek Orthodox churches, the Protestant churches use a lot less scripture in their services. And they talked about how the songs would be more about the culture and less about direct citations from scripture. So anyway, they at the end of the chapter, they were excited that people like us in this worship history class are taking and reading books like this and taking the history of the church and being able to apply it to our time today. And so that's an important part of not going towards a trend of becoming just more about culture and less about and not being connected with history. We need to be relevant but also still connected to our past and realize the importance of history of worship. Thank you for listening.